Carter rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the clock on her computer screen. 3:47 in the morning. She had been working for 12 hours straight in the space station that orbited Jupiter. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago, but she kept drinking it anyway. Her job was simple but boring. She listened to sounds from deep space. Most of the time it was just noise, random signals from stars and planets that meant nothing, but sometimes, very rarely, she might find something interesting. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Was alone on the night shift. During the day, 20 other scientists worked in the station, but at night it was just her and the endless darkness of space outside the windows. She yawned and stretched her arms above her head. Her back hurt from sitting in the same chair for too long. Maybe she should take a break and walk around the station. But as she started to get up, something caught her attention. A new sound was coming through her headphones. It was different from the usual cosmic noise. This sound had a pattern to it, sat back down and turned up the volume. The signal was very weak, so weak that most people would have missed it completely, but had been doing this job for 8 years. She knew how to spot the unusual sounds hiding in all the noise. She ran the signal through her computer programs. The results made her heart beat faster. This was not natural. Stars and planets did not make sounds like this. This signal was made by something intelligent. Picked up her phone and called Jake. Jake was the military officer who worked on the station. He would not be happy about being woken up at this hour, but this was too important to wait. "What is it?" Jake's voice was tired and annoyed. "I need you to come to the listening room right now," said. "I found something." "Can it wait until morning?" "No, it cannot wait. Trust me on this." 10 minutes later, Jake walked into the room wearing his uniform but looking like he had just rolled out of bed. His hair was messy and his eyes were red. "This better be good," Jake said. "I have a meeting with the Admiral in 4 hours." Pointed at her computer screen. "Look at this signal. It's coming from the 442 star system. That's 1,200 light years away." Jake looked at the screen but shook his head. "I see numbers and graphs. What does it mean?" "It means someone is trying to talk to us," said. "This is not natural. No star or planet makes this kind of pattern." Jake suddenly looked more awake. "Are you sure?" "I have been doing this job for 8 years. I know the difference between space noise and an actual signal." Played the sound for Jake. Even through the static and interference, they could hear something that sounded almost like music. But it was strange music, unlike anything made by humans. "What are they saying?" Jake asked. "I don't know yet, but my computer is working on it." They waited while the computer tried to decode the signal, made fresh coffee while Jake called his boss to report what they had found. This was the kind of discovery that could change everything. After 2 hours of computer analysis, the first results came back. Stared at the screen in amazement. "Jake, come look at this." The computer had found mathematical patterns in the signal. Simple math at first. 2 plus 2 equals 4. The square root of 16 equals 4. But then more complex ideas. The chemical makeup of water. The speed of light. "Whoever sent this is trying to prove they're intelligent," said. "They're showing us they understand science and math." But there was more. Hidden in the mathematical patterns was something else. The computer called it an emotional signature. Fear, desperation, a cry for help. Jake called Admiral Hayes at Earth Defense Command. Within an hour, 3 more scientists had arrived at the station by emergency shuttle. Within 6 hours, the best minds on Earth were working on the signal. Dr. Green was an expert in alien communication theory. Dr. Lisa specialized in computer code breaking. Dr. Carl Davis knew more about space and distant planets than almost anyone. Working together, they slowly began to understand the message. The beings who sent it called themselves the. They lived on a planet called in the 442 system. They were in trouble, Big trouble. Another alien race called the was attacking their world. They were destroying everything, killing the people, taking their resources, turning their beautiful planet into a wasteland. The message had been sent over and over for many years. They were broadcasting it in all directions, hoping someone would hear. Anyone. They were asking for help from whoever might be listening in the darkness of space. Felt tears in her eyes as she read the decoded message. These people, these aliens, were dying. They had reached out across impossible distances, hoping someone would care enough to help them. The most heartbreaking part was at the end of the message. They said they did not expect anyone to risk their lives for strangers. They just wanted someone to know they had existed, someone to remember that they had tried to be good people in a dangerous universe. Jake looked pale as he read the report. How long do they have? Dr. Green studied the signal strength. The transmission is getting weaker. Their technology is failing. I would guess they have months, maybe less. What can we do? Asked. They're 1,200 light years away. It would take our fastest ship thousands of years to reach them. Maybe nothing, Jake said quietly. Maybe we're too late. But refused to accept that. Somewhere in the darkness, people were dying. People who had reached out for help. People who had faith that someone good might be listening. She looked at the signal data again. They had been broadcasting for decades, using the last of their power to call for help. They never gave up hope that someone would answer. Picked up the phone to call Earth. If they would not give up, then neither would she. The emergency meeting room in Washington was packed with the most important people on Earth. President Gregory Stone sat at the head of the long table, his face serious and tired. He had been awake for 36 hours since Carter's discovery reached his desk. Around the table sat leaders from every major country. Premier Wei from China, Prime Minister Sarah Johnson from Britain, President from Russia, and dozens of others. Everyone was talking at once, and nobody was agreeing on anything. "This is madness," shouted General Robert Clark, the head of Earth's military forces. "We barely have working spaceships, and now you want us to fight aliens 1,200 light years away." "We cannot ignore this," replied Dr. Helen Murphy, the president's science advisor. "This is first contact with alien life. We have to respond." Premier Wei shook his head. "My country will not risk our people for aliens we know nothing about. We should study this signal more before making any decisions." President Stone raised his hand for quiet. "Dr. Carter, please explain what you've learned about these aliens." Stood up nervously. She had never spoken to so many powerful people before. Her hands shook as she looked at her notes. "They appear to be peaceful people," she began. "Their message contains no references to weapons or war. They seem to live in harmony with their planet's nature. They grow their technology instead of building it." "What does that mean?" asked Prime Minister Johnson. "Their cities are alive. Their spaceships are grown like plants. They use biology instead of metal and computers." Doctor, who had been studying the alien data, added more information. "They have existed for over 50,000 years without major wars. They seem to be naturally peaceful beings." "And the attackers?" President Stone asked. "They are the opposite," said, her voice growing sad. "They destroy everything they touch. They take all the resources from a planet, then move on to the next one. They have already wiped out the life on 2 planets in the system." The room erupted in arguments again. Some leaders said humanity should help. Others said it was too dangerous. A few suggested that the whole thing might be a trick to lure humans into space where aliens could attack Earth. "How do we even know this is real?" demanded General Clark. "Maybe these aliens are lying to us. Maybe they want us to come so they can capture our technology." Felt angry. The signal has been broadcasting for decades, long before humans had any space technology worth stealing. These people are dying, and all you can do is argue about it. The arguments continued for hours. Religious leaders were brought in to discuss whether humans had the right to interfere in alien affairs. Military experts explained why any rescue mission would be almost impossible. Politicians worried about spending money and resources on aliens instead of Earth's problems. Captain Lisa Park, the commander of Earth's spaceship, sat quietly through most of the debate. Finally, President Stone asked for her opinion. "The UES Endeavour is our most advanced ship," Captain Park said. "It has the new quantum tunnel drive that can travel faster than light. In theory, we could reach the system in 18 months. "In theory?" Premier Wei asked. "The drive has never been tested on a long journey. We don't know if it will work. The ship might break down in deep space. The crew might never come home." General Clark nodded. "See, it's a suicide mission." "Maybe," Captain Park agreed. "But if we don't try, we'll never know if we could have saved them." The debate went on for 3 more days. Spent the time trying to establish better communication with the. She worked 18 hours a day, learning their language and trying to understand their culture. On the 3rd day, she finally managed to have a real conversation with one of the aliens. The being called itself High Keeper. It was one of the leaders of the people. His hands were shaking as she typed her first message to an alien being. "We received your signal. We want to help." The response came back 1,200 years later, but through quantum communication, it only took minutes. "We cannot believe you exist. We had given up hope that anyone would hear us." "Tell me about your people," typed. "We are few now. Once we numbered in the billions. Now only millions remain. They take more of our world each day. Soon there will be nothing left." "Can you fight them?" "We do not know how to fight. We have never made weapons. We have never hurt other living things. It is not our way." Felt tears running down her face. "How long do you have?" "Perhaps 1 season in your measure of time, maybe less. Our power grows weak. Soon we will not be able to send messages anymore. We are trying to help, but some of our people are afraid." There was a long pause before replied. "We understand fear. We do not ask for your warriors to die for us. We ask only that someone somewhere remember that we tried to be good." Printed out the conversation and ran to the meeting room. The leaders were still arguing when she burst through the doors. "Read this," she said, shoving the papers at President Stone. The room fell silent as the president read words aloud. When he finished, nobody spoke for a long time. Premier Wei was the first to break the silence. "They are not asking us to fight. They just want to be remembered." "Which makes it worse," said Prime Minister Johnson quietly. "They have given up hope, but they still have dignity." President Stone looked around the room at all the world leaders. "We came together as one people when we formed the United Earth Government. We said we would represent the best of humanity. What kind of people would we be if we ignored a cry for help?" The vote was taken that evening. Every country voted yes. Earth would send a rescue mission to save the. Captain Park and her crew would take the UES Endeavour on humanity's first journey to another star system. They would risk everything to save people they had never met. Sent one final message to High Keeper that night. "Help is coming. Do not give up hope." The UES Endeavour was the largest spaceship humans had ever built. It was 3 miles long and shaped like a giant arrow pointing toward the stars. Captain Lisa Park stood on the bridge looking out at Earth one last time. She knew she might never see her home planet again. 60 volunteers had joined the mission. Each person knew the risks. The quantum tunnel drive had never been tested on such a long journey. They might get lost in space. The ship might break apart. They might run out of food or air before reaching the. Commander Dan checked the crew roster one more time. "Everyone is aboard, Captain. The families have said their goodbyes." Lisa nodded. She had no family of her own to leave behind. Her parents had died in the Mars colony disaster 10 years ago. The military was her only family now, and today she was taking 60 of them on the most dangerous mission in human history. "Dr. Carter, are you ready to maintain contact with during our journey?" Lisa asked. Looked up from her communication equipment. "Yes, Captain. High Keeper is waiting to hear from us. They are very excited that help is coming." Chief Engineer Karen finished her final checks on the quantum drive. "The engine is ready, Captain, but I have to warn you again. We have no idea what 18 months of quantum tunneling will do to the ship or to us." "Understood," Lisa said. "All stations prepare for departure." The launch was smooth. Earth fell away behind them as they accelerated toward the edge of the solar system, but the real journey would not begin until they activated the quantum drive. "Quantum drive activation in 10 seconds, Karen announced from the engine room. Lisa felt her stomach twist with nervousness. "All hands, prepare for quantum jump." The ship shuddered and groaned as reality bent around them. The stars outside stretched into long lines of light, then everything went white. When Lisa could see again, they were in the emptiness between star systems. The quantum tunnel drive was working, pushing them through folded space at incredible speed. But the journey would still take 18 months. The first problem started after 2 weeks. The quantum field was putting stress on the ship's hull. Small cracks appeared in the outer walls. Karen and her engineering team worked day and night to repair them. "The metal cannot handle this kind of stress for 18 months, Karen told Lisa privately. "We need to make some changes or the ship will break apart." "What kind of changes?" "We need to reduce power to non-essential systems. That means less heat, less light, and smaller food portions." Lisa made the announcement to the crew. Nobody complained. They all knew what they had signed up for. Spent most of her time talking to the. She learned their language and their customs. She discovered that they had no concept of war or violence. For 50,000 years, they had lived in peace with each other and with nature. "How do you solve disagreements?" asked during one of their conversations. "We talk until we understand each other. Sometimes this takes many days, but we always find a way that helps everyone." "What about criminals, people who hurt others?" "Such people are very rare among us. When someone is troubled, the community helps them find peace. We believe that hurt comes from loneliness and fear." Shared these conversations with the crew. Everyone was amazed by the way of life. They seemed like the kindest people in the universe. After 8 months of travel, disaster struck. The quantum drive suffered a major breakdown. The ship dropped out of quantum tunnel space and drifted helplessly in the void between stars. Karen and her team worked for days to figure out what had gone wrong. Finally, she called a meeting with the senior officers. "The quantum field generator has burned out," she explained. "We need to replace it, but the replacement parts are inside the engine core. Someone will have to go outside the ship to make the repairs." "In deep space?" Dan asked. "That's incredibly dangerous." "I know. The nearest star is 4 light-years away. If something goes wrong, we cannot be rescued." Engineer Tony Miller volunteered for the job. He was the smallest member of the engineering team and could fit into the tight spaces around the engine. The spacewalk took 6 hours. Tony worked alone in the darkness, with only his suit's small lights to see by. Halfway through the repair, his oxygen system started to fail. "Tony, get back to the ship now," Karen ordered over the radio. "Almost finished," Tony replied, his breathing heavy. "Just need 2 more minutes." Dr. Rachel Stone was waiting in the airlock when Tony finally made it back inside. His face was blue from lack of oxygen, but he was alive. "Did you fix it?" Lisa asked. Tony smiled weakly. "Fire her up, Captain." The quantum drive started working again, but Karen warned that it was not reliable. They had used up most of their spare parts. If it broke down again, they might be stranded forever. 3 more breakdowns happened during the remaining journey. Each time, the crew worked together to fix the problems. They were running out of food, running out of air, and running out of hope, but they kept going. Conversations with the kept everyone motivated. The aliens were getting weaker, but they never stopped thanking the humans for coming to help them. Their gratitude and kindness inspired the crew to keep fighting. Finally, after 18 long months, they reached the 442 system. What they saw through the ship's telescopes horrified them. 2 planets had been completely stripped of life. The surfaces were bare rock and metal. Giant mining ships, each one bigger than Earth's largest cities, were sucking up the remaining resources. "Those must be the ships," whispered. Around the hundreds of alien warships waited like vultures. The beautiful planet that had described was dying. Its green forests were turning brown. Its blue oceans were shrinking. "Captain," Dan said quietly, "we are seriously outnumbered." Lisa stared at the massive enemy fleet. The Endeavor was tiny compared to just one of the ships. How could 60 humans possibly fight against thousands of aliens with superior technology? Received one final message from High Keeper. "My friends from the distant stars, you have kept your promise. You came to help us. But now you must save yourselves. They will destroy you if you stay." Lisa looked at her crew. They had traveled across the galaxy to save the. They were not going to run away now. Captain Lisa Park called an emergency meeting in the ship's main conference room. The entire senior crew gathered around the table, their faces grim as they looked at the images from their telescopes. "The situation is worse than we expected," Lisa began. "They have hundreds of ships surrounding the planet. Each one is massive. Our weapons would barely scratch their hulls." Commander Dan pulled up tactical displays on the wall screen. "I count over 300 enemy vessels. Some of them are 20 miles long. We have one ship with basic defensive weapons." Dr. Carter had been talking to High Keeper for the past hour. Her eyes were red from crying. "They are almost out of time. Their cities are failing. Their population has dropped to under 2 million people." Chief Engineer Karen shook her head. "Even if we could fight we cannot save 2 million people. Our cargo holds can carry maybe 10,000 at most." "So we came all this way for nothing?" asked Dr. Rachel Stone. Wiped her eyes and looked at the others. "No, told me something important. They have a plan. They have been working on it for years." "What kind of plan?" Lisa asked. "They call it the final gift. They have created a biological weapon that will poison their entire planet. It will make everything toxic to the air, the water, the soil, everything." Dan leaned forward. "That would force them to leave." "Yes, but there is a problem. The weapon will also kill They have maybe 6 hours after they release it before they all die too." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They were planning to commit suicide to deny their planet. "They never expected to be rescued," continued. "They just wanted to hurt their enemies before they died. But now that we are here, they have hope again." "Hope for what?" Karen asked. "We cannot save 2 million people." Stood up and walked to the wall screen. She called up data about the ship's quantum drive. "What if we do not try to carry them? What if we create a doorway for them to escape through?" "A doorway?" Lisa asked. "The quantum tunnel drive creates rifts in space and time. What if we make the rift bigger, big enough for their ships to fly through?" Karen stared at the data. "You want to turn our drive into a giant wormhole? That is insane." "Is it possible?" Lisa asked. Karen thought for a long moment. "Maybe, but it would be incredibly dangerous. We would have to stay here and use our ship as an anchor. The drive would overload and explode eventually." "How long would we have?" 6 hours, maybe 7, before the drive destroys itself and takes us with it." Commander Dan understood immediately. "The same 6 hours they have after they release their weapon." "Exactly," said. "We create the wormhole. They release their poison and evacuate through our portal. Then we all die together." Lisa looked around the table at her officers. This is not what we planned. We came here to rescue aliens, not to die with them. They do not expect us to die for them, said. Told me we should save ourselves, but how can we leave them to face death alone? Engineer Tony Miller, who had almost died during the repairs, spoke up. Captain, we all knew this might be a one-way trip. At least this way our deaths will mean something. Dr. Rachel Stone nodded. I did not join this mission to run away when things got difficult. One by one, each officer agreed. They would stay and help the escape, even if it meant dying in the process. Lisa made the announcement to the entire crew over the ship's communication system. She explained the plan and gave everyone a choice. They could take the escape pods and try to reach a safe distance, or they could stay and help save the. Not a single person chose to leave. Chief Engineer Karen and her team began modifying the quantum drive. It was dangerous work. One mistake could destroy the ship immediately, but they worked carefully, guided by their desire to save innocent lives. Contacted High Keeper to explain the plan. The alien leader was silent for a long time after hearing the proposal. You would die for us, finally asked. We are strangers to you. You are not strangers anymore, replied. You are our friends. Friends help each other. Your species gives us hope that the universe still has room for kindness. We will not forget this gift. They began preparing their evacuation ships. These were not metal spacecraft like human ships. They were living creatures, grown from the planet itself. Each one pulsed with soft light and could carry thousands of passengers. Meanwhile, the fleet was moving closer to the planet. Their sensors had detected the Endeavor, but they seemed to consider the small human ship unimportant. They were focused on claiming their prize. The commanders had no idea what was being planned below them. Karen finished the modifications after 20 hours of non-stop work. The drive is ready, Captain, but once we start the process, there is no going back. Lisa stood on the bridge, looking out at the dying planet. Somewhere down there, 2 million people were preparing to sacrifice everything to deny their enemy's victory. The least she could do was help them escape. Dr. Carter, tell we are ready. Sent the message. The response came back immediately. We begin the final gift now. Thank you for giving us hope in our darkest hour. The biological weapon was released from hidden laboratories across the planet. Within minutes, the air itself became poisonous to the alien invaders began retreating from the surface as their equipment failed and their soldiers fell sick. But the fleet in space remained dangerous. When they realized what was happening, they would turn their anger on the small human ship keeping the escape route open. Quantum wormhole activation in 30 seconds, Karen announced. Lisa gripped the arms of her command chair. All hands, prepare for wormhole generation. The ship began to shake as massive energies tore holes in space and time. Outside the windows, reality twisted into impossible shapes. A glowing tunnel appeared in the darkness, leading to safety among distant stars. The first evacuation ships began emerging from their dying planet, heading for the portal that would carry them to a new home. But the wormhole was unstable, flickering between dimensions as the Endeavor system strained to maintain it. Captain Lisa Park watched the alien ships racing towards salvation and knew that humanity had passed its greatest test. They had proven themselves worthy of friendship with the stars. The wormhole glowed like a giant eye in the darkness of space. Evacuation ships poured through it like drops of light, each one carrying thousands of refugees to safety. Captain Lisa Park watched from the bridge as her ship shook violently from the strain of keeping the portal open. Hull stress at critical levels, Commander Dan reported, his voice tight with worry. We cannot maintain this much longer. Chief Engineer Karen's voice crackled over the communication system from the engine room. The quantum drive is overloading. We have maybe 4 hours before it explodes. 4 hours. Carter calculated quickly. At the current rate, only half the population would escape before the wormhole collapsed. 1 million people would still be trapped on the poisoned planet. Can we increase the portal's size? Lisa asked. If we boost power, the drive will fail even faster, Karen replied. Maybe 2 hours instead of 4. Lisa made a command decision. Do it. Save as many as we can. The wormhole expanded, becoming twice as large. More ships could pass through at once, but the Endeavour groaned and sparked as its systems reached breaking point. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. On the main screen, a massive dreadnought was approaching. It was bigger than anything the humans had ever seen, the size of a small moon. They have figured out what we are doing, Dan said. That ship has enough firepower to destroy us with one shot. Dr. Rachel Stone was treating injured crew members who had been hurt by falling debris. How long until they reach firing range? 20 minutes, Dan calculated. Was in constant contact with High Keeper. The alien leader was coordinating the evacuation from the planet's surface, while the biological weapon spread through the air and water. You need to evacuate faster, typed urgently. They are coming for us. We understand, came the reply. But our elderly and sick cannot move quickly. We will not leave them behind. It was exactly what it expected. They would rather die together than abandon their weakest members. Engineer Tony Miller was working in the quantum drive core when the first attack hit the ship. The energy blasted through him against the wall, but he got back up and continued his repairs. Drive efficiency down to 60%, he reported. I can fix it, but I need 5 minutes. We do not have 5 minutes, Karen replied. The ship will be in range soon. That was when High Keeper made a decision that would be remembered forever. Instead of continuing the evacuation, the remaining ships turned around and flew back toward their planet. What are they doing? Lisa asked in confusion. Her eyes filled with tears as she read's message. They are going to block the ship. They are sacrificing themselves to give us more time. Dozens of vessels, glowing with soft bioluminescent light, positioned themselves between the human ship and the approaching dreadnought. They were tiny compared to the enemy warship, like fireflies facing a hurricane. The commander, confused by this unexpected resistance, slowed his approach. The ships were not attacking. They were simply in the way, creating a living shield with their own bodies. It bought the humans precious minutes. Tony Miller finished his repairs and the wormhole stabilized. Hundreds more ships poured through the portal, carrying the last of the refugees to safety. But the dreadnought had had enough. It opened fire on the ships blocking its path. The beautiful living vessels died in flashes of light, their bioluminescence fading as they were destroyed. They are clearing a path to us, Dan reported. Ship will have a clear shot in 2 minutes. Karen's voice came from the engine room, strained but determined. Quantum drive is at maximum overload. We have maybe 30 seconds before it explodes. Lisa looked at the evacuation status. Nearly all that had escaped through the wormhole. Only a few thousand remained on the planet, and their ships were almost through the portal. All hands prepare for quantum drive failure, Lisa announced. The last ship passed through the wormhole just as the dreadnought fired its main weapon. The energy beam streaked toward the Endeavour like a bolt of lightning. But something unexpected happened. The quantum drive exploded at exactly that moment, creating a massive surge of energy that tore open space itself. The weapon was caught in the expanding rift and vanished into folded dimensions. The explosion should have destroyed the Endeavour instantly. Instead, the ship was caught in its own wormhole and thrown across the galaxy like a piece of debris in a storm. When the chaos ended, Captain Lisa Park found herself looking at familiar stars. They were back in Earth's solar system, somehow thrown home by the very explosion that should have killed them. The ship was badly damaged and barely holding together, but the crew was alive. In the cargo holds, 47,000 refugees waited to see their new home. The rescue mission had succeeded beyond all hope. News of the mission's return spread across Earth within hours. Humanity had made first contact with aliens, fought an interstellar war, and saved an entire civilization. The grateful beyond words shared their biotechnology with their rescuers. Human medicine advanced by centuries overnight. Diseases that had plagued humanity for thousands of years were cured using biological techniques. Food shortages ended as crops were enhanced with alien plant genetics. But the greatest change was not in technology. It was in how humans saw themselves and their place in the universe. Children of both species grew up together on Earth and in new colonies among the stars. They learned the story of how a faint signal had brought two civilizations together. They learned that the greatest strength was not in weapons or technology, but in the willingness to help strangers in need. Carter, now Earth's first ambassador to alien species, often visited the communities. High Keeper had survived the evacuation and become a leader of the refugees on Earth. "Your people kept their promise," told her during one visit. "You heard our call and you answered." "We did what anyone should do," replied. "We helped our friends." Alien features showed what might have been a smile. Perhaps that is why the universe allowed us to find each other, because in all the darkness between the stars, kindness still shines. Years later, as human ships explored new worlds together, they carried the same message that had once broadcast in desperation. But now it was a message of hope instead of fear. The signal was no longer faint. The plea was no longer desperate. And the universe had changed forever because humanity had answered when someone called for help.